Hey, good morning, guys. It's a huge impact. So softwood timber and lumber is in massive demand here, and that's because it's used in construction like this. So that specific type of wood is used in frames when you're building a home. So let's talk about the impact. This morning, there's now a 10% tariff on this.
Going into effect today, lumber, furniture, and other wood products potentially adding more cost to surging home building and renovation projects. Chief Business Correspondent Rebecca Jarvis have the details for us. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Michael. Nice to see you guys. And if you've been trying to buy furniture for your home, you've already seen those prices going up. The cost of furniture.
The industry is panicking because 90% of the wood furniture that is sold here in the United States is made overseas. Not here at Gat Creek. The CEO, Gat Caperton, sources nearly everything he makes in his own backyard, the Appalachian forest. So, Stuart, I would say his tree farm is a bit bigger than your tree farm.
With tariffs, all of a sudden our product is going to look a lot more affordable compared to something that's been imported. It's a very good position to be in. You get to see real value of what we do.
Now, their new rule, it slaps a 25% tariff on things like wooden furniture, kitchen cabinets, along with bathroom vanities, along with a 10% tariff on things like softwood and timber.
Comes as the rising trade tensions between the U.S. and China have been on quite the roller coaster as of late.
That's right. Many investors are hoping they will slow down, but that's not what's happening at U.S. ports.
It began as a quiet morning in Toronto, a trade conference meant to calm markets after months of tariff tension. But by noon, that calm was gone. From a live feed out of Washington, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick delivered a line that hit like thunder. There will be no free trade without tariffs. In a single sentence, decades of partnership cracked. Phones buzzed across Ontario. Headlines flashed red. Washington rejects auto deal. And in factory break rooms from Windsor to Oshawa, workers watched the news in disbelief. For years, Ontario's auto corridor was North America's industrial heartbeat, an $80 billion engine linking Detroit and Toronto, Michigan and Ontario. Now that engine was under threat. Washington's new directive was clear. Cars must be built in America, not in Ontario, not under shared supply chains, not through cross-border cooperation that built millions of middle-class jobs. But the shock didn't stop at cars. When tariffs rise, so do prices on wood, metal, and every screw that holds an American home together. And that's where the real story begins. As Lutnick's words echoed through the conference hall, furniture executives from North Carolina to Ohio were already calculating the fallout. A 25% tariff on imported materials, hardwoods, veneers, fittings, sounded like protection. But to an industry built on North American integration, it was a chokehold. Factories that had survived 2 recessions and a pandemic now faced input costs 30 to 40% higher overnight. By evening, stock prices tumbled. Retail chains warned of layoffs. And in small towns across Pennsylvania and Indiana, where furniture once meant dignity and steady work, the lights began to flicker. The question was simple and devastating. How did a policy meant to defend American jobs start dismantling the towns it promised to save? In early 2025, President Trump's new tariff package landed like an economic earthquake. 25% on steel, 35% on aluminum, up to 50% on trucks, machinery, and furniture, 100% on imported pharmaceuticals. The White House called it rebalancing trade. Inside factories, the word people used was suffocation. Across the Rust Belt, auto suppliers reported part costs soaring over 30%. Furniture plants in Arkansas delayed shipments because imported fittings had doubled in price. And in Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley, a 60-year-old cabinet maker shut its doors for good. Economists called it tariff eco-inflation. Every duty stacked on the next, pushing prices higher at every step. Steel went up, so trucks went up. Aluminum rose, so appliances rose. By August 2025, U.S. consumer inflation hit 5.7%. The highest in more than a decade. Meanwhile, the rest of the world moved in the opposite direction. The European Union deepened supply chain alliances across Asia. Japan and South Korea synchronized industrial standards. While others built bridges, Washington built walls. And as America isolated, its allies quietly took its markets. Within 6 months, the U.S. export deficit widened by $74 billion. Despite the tariffs, Ottawa didn't retaliate with noise. It responded with strategy. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said it calmly. Those who impose tariffs on us should not expect the same privileges. Behind that statement was quiet power, because Canada doesn't just trade with America, it powers it. From the copper in Detroit's wiring to the hydroelectricity lighting homes in New York and Vermont, the flow north to south never stops. Canada supplies 15% of the northeastern U.S. power grid, and it holds the minerals that drive the modern economy: nickel, lithium, cobalt. Each ton of nickel can decide whether a Michigan EV plant meets its quota or shuts down. Then there's the consumer market. Canada's 40 million citizens buy over 2 million vehicles a year, 1/4 made in the U.S. If Ottawa redirects even part of that demand to Europe or Asia, the shock would be immediate. That's what Ford meant by quiet leverage. By fall, the paradox was undeniable. Across the Midwest, assembly lines slowed, not from lack of demand, but lack of parts. Auto plants in Michigan and Ohio reported aluminum shortages. Truck factories in Toledo waited days for steel bolts that once arrived overnight. Every delay cost money. Every tariff added weight. By September, U.S. automakers calculated an average cost increase of $1,200 per vehicle. Protection had become pressure, and while Washington doubled down, Japan and Germany expanded partnerships, securing cheaper raw materials and cooling inflation. As America tightened borders, others opened theirs and grew. Then came the second phase. October 2025, another executive order, another shockwave. Tariffs on lumber, furniture, trucks, and drugs. Nearly $155 billion in U.S.-Canada trade now carried a tariff tag. Lumber prices spiked above $640 per thousand board feet. Home building costs rose $14,000 per house. Furniture prices jumped 20% before the holidays. And for medicines like insulin, prices climbed 35%. Protection had never cost so much. While Washington roared, Ottawa stayed calm. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Doug Ford stood together and said simply, "Canada will protect its industries with resolve, not rage." They announced a $500 million industrial shield package, not as a bailout but a modernization plan. Factories got upgrades, jobs stayed local, and exports were quietly rerouted east to Europe, Japan, and ASEAN. Within weeks, Canada's markets rebounded. The TSX jumped 3%. The Canadian dollar strengthened to 0.76 USD. Analysts called it a masterclass in composure amid chaos. By the year's end, the lesson was clear. Power doesn't come from shouting the loudest. It comes from standing the longest. The future won't belong to those who isolate, but to those who adapt, connect, and endure. Because in trade, as in life, every action ricochets. Every policy casts a shadow. Trump wanted to prove strength, but perhaps in the end Canada proved endurance. So the question now isn't who wins the tariff war, it's who lasts through the storm.